Hi, I'm Bill Perkins. Welcome to Compass TV. If you love the Lord, love your Bible, and love to learn, you're going to love this presentation. This may be the funniest stealing presentation in the history of stealing conferences. People were crying, they were laughing so hard. I sure was. One attendee said, I personally learned more about my wife in 45 minutes in the 35 years I've been married. Every person who's married or will be married one day will love this presentation. So sit back and enjoy Why Women Are Weird and Men Are a Mess by David Moore.
And I'm going to try to explain to you tonight why women are weird and men are a mess. And I thought I'd start by telling you a little story from my honeymoon 35 years ago. At the time, I knew nothing about riding a horse. I was a motorcycle rider. And in my thinking, men ride motorcycles, girls ride horses. And since then, I've learned to ride a horse and play polo and all that, and I really appreciate it. But at the time, I just didn't really want much to do with it. But on my honeymoon, my wife, who owned horses and loved to ride, wanted to have a romantic ride on the beach horseback. So I said, sure, let's try that. And we went to this place to rent horses in Monterey, California. They asked her how long she'd been riding. She said, I've ridden my whole life, have my own horse. So they said, great, we have a horse for you. And they give her a horse. You know what I mean? This is a rental place. She gets a real horse. They asked me how much I'd ridden, and I said, well, I've been on a horse a couple of times, but I'm really not much of a rider. And they said, we've got just the horse for you. And they took me over here, and here's this, I think it was a horse. It had 4 legs, swayed back. You know, one of the legs in the back was doing this, and it was a pathetic excuse of a horse, but that's what they matched me up for my skill level. So I jumped on that horse. She jumped on her horse. She did the, and her horse just took off. I went, and the horse just stood there. So I kicked it a couple of more times, and it wouldn't move. So I did the yada, yada, giddy up, and it just sat there. And finally, I jumped off the horse and broke off a little switch off a tree and went over and whack, 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 and it took like 3 steps. Now, this is my honeymoon, and we're going to have a romantic ride on the beach, and she's already at the top of the mountain, and I'm still trying to get the horse moving. So for the next 30, 40 minutes, I beat this horse for every step to try to get him to the top of the mountain to ride down onto the beach, where she's already been riding for 35, 40 minutes. And you know how it is when you're first married, you don't have any money, so we could only afford 1 hour rental. And we got to get the horses back. So I'm up at the top, and she rides up next there to me, and she goes, come on, let's go ride on the beach. I said, we can't afford it. I've got to get this horse back. It's going to take, we won't get back before sundown. And so she said, okay. So she did and her horse just took off down the hill. I turned my horse's head, and I don't know what came over this horse. But he realized, we're going home. And so I did and I'm telling you, mainline Geritol or something hit this horse, and he took off in a full gallop down this hill. Now, I am terrified. I'm pulling back on this horse's head. Whoa, whoa, slow down, whoa. And this horse is just fast and furious down the mountain. And you know those stirrup things? I didn't know those were supposed to be short enough that you could stand up. So my body is taking the full brunt of the gallop, beating me senseless down this hill, and I'm pulling back on this horse's head. Pretty soon, his head, he's looking straight up. Now, he can't see where we're going. And then I saw my wife and her horse leap over a log that was across the trail. I thought, my horse hasn't even seen the log. So I let him have his head back down, and he starts picking up speed, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a disaster. And as he's running towards this thing, I'm holding on. I'm not even hanging on the reins anymore. I'm holding on to that horn thing, you know. I'm just trying to survive and keep my body parts intact. And this horse came up to that log and stopped. Bam! Put down his head, launched me. I bounced down the road. My wife looks back at me. She is laughing hysterically. I look back at that horse thinking glue factory. He's even laughing at me. Well, the truth of the story is I was totally unprepared, uninformed, out of control, over my head, just like most people are in their relationships. When relationships get out of control, they can be bumpy and painful and problematic, and they can end just as abruptly as my ride on the horse did. The issue, though, is human relationships are essential to human fulfillment and happiness. That's because we're created in the image of God. God is a relationship. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, He is a relationship. That's why He wants a relationship with you. Even, you're kind of messed up, He still loves you and me. But we crave that connection with somebody. It was Plato who said an individual is only half a person who spends his life looking for his missing half. That's because we are relational by design. God built us this way. And ultimately, fulfillment is found in those relationships. On the other hand, the inability to get along causes great pain and relational disasters. And we don't get much good education in this arena. I remember this 5-year-old little boy. He had learned about God creating man and woman, and that Eve was taken from Adam's side. And he just thought that was the most fascinating story. And 2 days later, the little guy had a side ache. And so he said, "Hey, Dad, my side hurts. I think I'm having a wife." Or the pastor who visited the 4th grade Sunday school class and says, "Children, what does the Bible say about marriage?" And the little guy threw up his hand. He said, I know. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And there's truth to that. Now, I don't believe anyone marries to be miserable, but unfortunately, there's often a rude surprise after the honeymoon. You might remember dating one person and coming home from the honeymoon with another. Oh, not a different body person, but you know what I'm saying? That's why, given the opportunity, 6 out of 10 Americans would not marry the same person again. So many in our country have learned that if love is blind, marriage is the great eye-opener. And if love is an institution and love is blind, if marriage is an institution and love is blind, that means that marriage is an institution for the blind. Worse yet, no wife ever gets what she expects, and no husband expects what he gets. Which is why the average man believes that if a wedding means showers for her, it means curtains for him. Well, why is it that we have such a tough time getting along? Part of the reason is our relational differences are rooted in our bodily differences. Men and women are very, very different. Yes. I agree with you. I'm convinced that God looked down through time and everybody who would be born ugly, man. Everyone born beautiful, woman. So I've got to agree with you there. But this whole relational thing has nothing to do with our intelligence. It has nothing to do with how successful we are in other areas of lives. Our problems begin by failing to understand the basic differences between men and women. And how tragic is it that we end up competing with one another instead of completing one another? And we fail to understand that when we look at that other person and think, "You are so weird," our very next step is to put on our fix-it hat and to fix them. It's like a lady who told me one day, no kidding, she said, "Men are like fine wine. They all start out like grapes, and it's our job to stomp on them and keep them in the dark until they're mature into something you'd like to have dinner with." Many a man here has been stepped on before. Hey, look at Proverbs chapter 30, verse 19. It says, "There are 3 things that amaze me." Now wait, before we read this, remember who wrote this? Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, given supernatural insight. And he still couldn't figure out the opposite sex. And it's not that he lacked experience. Remember, he had 700 wives and 300 girlfriends on the side. Of course, if he was all that smart, you wouldn't think he'd marry 700 times. I mean, can you imagine keeping track, gentlemen, of 700 birthdays and anniversaries? Can you imagine the levels of PMS in the palace? Well, Solomon said, "There are 3 things that amaze me. No, 4 things I do not understand. How the eagle glides through the sky, how the snake slithers on a rock, how the ship navigates the ocean, and how a man loves a woman." Now, science can explain the first 3, right? Aerodynamics, biology, astronomy. However, the 4th one, understanding a woman, is still a mystery, isn't it, guys? And it was to Solomon. It's like the guy who put an ad in the newspaper, wife wanted. The next couple of days, he received 400 letters that all said the same thing. You can have mine. Well, the truth is, God has blessed humanity with men and women. And our sexual differences were intended to bring happiness, not hostility. There never needs to be a war of the sexes. You know why? Because nobody ever wins it. Henry Kissinger once said, nobody will ever win the war of the sexes. There's too much fraternizing with the enemy. And so, rather than trying to win the war, I believe that our differences should be encouraged, enjoyed. In fact, real happiness is found in understanding how God created us, how God created male and female. And then we can learn to do two things, respect and honor those differences. Now, I use those two words because those are the two words that the Scriptures use. The Scriptures say that men should honor their wives. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat her with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of the new life. If you don't treat her as you should, your prayers will not be heard. God feels pretty strongly about this, doesn't he? Honor her. That word honor is a Greek word that in classical times meant to worship. It came to mean dignity, something precious, to esteem in the highest. It carried the idea of lifting something up and putting it on a pedestal. We are instructed by the Scriptures to appreciate the differences so much in her that we lift her up and put her on a pedestal. We grant her honor. And as we do, the relationship thrives. And honor is intrinsic, not extrinsic, right? Honor is something that we give. It's not something you give yourself. We honor some vehicles more than others, right? We honor some metals more than others. We honor some stones more than others. But I can tell you, a geo doesn't sit around at night wishing it was a Rolls. And sandstone doesn't lament the fact that it's not a diamond. These values of diamonds and cars and things are based upon the worth that we give to them. And that's what this is talking about. Our job is to absolutely honor the differences of our wife. And it's all rooted in one thing, your ability to understand her. That's what the text says. As you will honor her and treat her with respect as you understand her. And the word understanding there in the Greek New Testament meant knowledge or science, meaning, gentlemen, our job is to make it a science of studying her uniqueness as a woman. And by doing so, we will honor her. Now then, the other word I used was respect. And that's the word that women have been told to give to their husbands. You know, some guys just aren't very respectable. So let's get an upgrade. How's that? Is that a little better? You ladies still aren't thrilled? Okay, one more. There we go. How's that? The Ephesians passage says, so again I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and she must respect her husband. Got it. She must respect her husband. That word respect is a word in classical Greek that meant to be startled or frightened. Now, no doubt many a woman has been startled by a man, but the word came to mean revere, to bow down and to pay homage. Now watch this. This is a perfect, beautiful balance. Because as the man lifts her up onto the pedestal, she is to bow down in homage out of respect. And that's the only way the two are ever going to get together. As one is lifting up and one is leaning over. It's a beautiful imagery. It's a perfect balance. It reminds me of 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 6, where it says, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him Lord. Hey, guys. When was the last time you woke up in the morning and your wife said, good morning, Lord? One time, Coach Vince Lombardi jumped into bed with his wife, and his feet were real cold, and he stuck his cold feet in her back. You ever done that, guys? And And she said, Lord, your feet are cold. And old Vince Lombardi said, dear, in the privacy of our home, you may call me Vince. Men, we should honor the differences of the wives. Women should respect the differences in their husbands. And both should appreciate those differences. Now, it's only fair, I think, that we upgrade the lady, too. There we go. Oh, much better. We should respect our differences. And one of the major differences that's so obvious is our bodies are different. In Genesis chapter 1:27, it says, so God created people in his own image. God patterned them after himself. Male and female, he created them. Gentlemen, every cell in your body is different than every cell in hers. She has 2 X chromosomes. You have an X and a Y. No wonder sex-related differences have been detected and documented within 52 hours of birth. Little boys are already acting like little boys. Little girls are already acting like little girls. We are different. Men have heavier blood than women, 20% more red corpuscles than women. You know what that means? It means that the muscles of a man gets more oxygen, and typically he'll have more energy. Men have thicker skin. Women tend to wrinkle at an earlier age because their skin is thinner. And ladies, it won't surprise you, has a thicker skull too. And then women have an extra layer of fat just beneath the skin. This gives them smoother skin, helps keep them cooler in the summer, warmer in the winter. But you know what else? It makes it difficult to lose weight. I mean, how many times have you, a couple, gone on a little diet, and in 3 days he loses 22 pounds, and you ladies, you lose 4 ounces? And then if he's not wise, he'll start bragging about it, which just drives a wedge between you because he simply doesn't understand the differences in the way that God built us. Men have larger bones than women. They're arranged differently. A woman's pelvis is wider than a man's, which forces her to put more effort into every single step, which means she tires more quickly. And you add the wider hips and high heels, and you have a perfect prescription for fatigue, as well as that really cute little walk that we guys kind of enjoy watching. Men have a higher ratio of muscle to fat. 40% of a man's weight is muscle compared to 20% of a woman's weight. That makes it easier again to lose the weight. The extra muscle gives a man more quick start energy. Pound for pound, a man is twice as strong as a woman. And if you don't believe that, gentlemen, go home tonight, arm wrestle your wife. If she beats you, you're pathetic. But our bodies are different. Do you know that we even breathe differently? Men breathe more deeply, women breathe more often, with one exception, when they're afraid. When they're afraid, they quit breathing. 2 summers ago, I was on a night dive with my wife. You know, night diving is an exciting thing because as you get down into the ocean, you can see only whatever it is your little flashlight can see. And so eels swim up past you and, manta rays, and it's just really an exciting thing. I love it. But we got through with this night dive, which took about 45 minutes. I'm down to like 10 pounds of air, and I drag her tank out, look at her little gauge there. She started with 3,000. She still has 2,500 pounds. I remember one time we were going off a rock, rappelling off this rock. It was about a 3,000-foot drop, and we were going to rappel down 200 feet to a cliff and then work our way back around. And we had a guide there who was teaching us, and as she was leaning out over the back of the rock, the guide noticed that she wasn't breathing. And I'll never forget him leaning out over there and getting right in her face and saying, breathe. Put my son out there. As soon as he leans over the rock, you know what he was doing? We even breathe differently. And you know what else is different about our bodies? There's that little menstrual cycle thing, which has a tremendous impact upon relationships. Do you know that at any given time, 18% of the female population is menstruating? Even though it's only 18%, 40 to 60% of the women who commit suicide do so while menstruating. And if the truth were known, most men who commit suicide do so while their wives are menstruating too. And when it comes to crime, women commit crimes during this time. Remember, there's only 18% at any particular time, but an English study showed 63% of the women who committed a crime were doing so on this cycle. A French study showed an 84% correlation. That makes sense because the French are always mad anyway. So guys, once a month, she's going to be slightly insane. And gentlemen, you know the difference between a woman with PMS and a pit bull, right? The woman has the lipstick on. Of course, to be fair, I saw a T-shirt on a lady the other day that said, PMS, putting up with man's stupidity. And there was another variation that really wasn't appropriate for me to use tonight. But now, to be honest, men go through a very similar cycle. Did you know that, ladies? Not monthly, daily. Men's testosterone levels are at the lowest around 8 p.m. and they peak at 4 a.m. And so while women may be chemically imbalanced once a month, guys are imbalanced every day. And if his testosterone levels are the lowest at 8 o'clock at night, that means the best time to ask him for something is around 8 o'clock at night. Just set your clock. 8 o'clock. Can I have a new dress? Sure, whatever, honey. Our bodies are different. The better we understand that, the easier it is for us to respect and honor one another. Now, you know what else is different? Our brains are different. Men are mono-minded. Women are stereo-minded. This is probably our greatest area of difference. Women use both sides of their brain at once. Men use one side or the other. And this is because the connecting fibers between the two sides of the brain, left and right, in little boys is damaged by testosterone. And so the fibers between the left and right brain in women are not only more numerous, but they are 23% wider than men. This allows her to use both sides of her brain at the same time. Women tend to listen with both ears. Men tend to listen with their right ear. Women, when they spell a word, brain activity lights up on both sides of the brain. Men, just the right side lights up. And this has a profound impact upon how we interact with each other because mono-minded men tend to set their minds on one thing at one time, which is why men excel at rotating three-dimensional objects, which gives them an edge in engineering, architecture, and catching a football. The downside, though, is men can seem emotionally retarded and insensitive. Most men are comfortable thinking with one thing at one time. And usually whatever that one thing is related to where they happen to be at the moment. Which is why, ladies, when he comes through the door and you say something like, "Did you think about me today?" He gets a blank look on his face and says something like, well, yeah, I'm sure I did. One thing, one time related to where he is. That's why he gets so irritated when he's interrupted on the phone. Gentlemen, does it drive you crazy when you're trying to talk on the phone and all of a sudden she wants to talk at the same time, wants to be a part of the conversation, and you're in between the person on the other end and the person her? You can't do that because your brain isn't wired that way. Whereas a woman, she can talk on the phone, cook dinner, correct the kids, talk to her husband, all at the same time. Gentlemen, you can't do that. That's why you can't carry on a meaningful conversation with her and drive the car at the same time. You can either think about where you're going and the best route, or you can talk to her. And guys, you know how it goes. You're driving along, talking to her, you miss a turn, and what does she say? "Do you know where you're going?" And you hate that, don't you? And you know why you hate that, gentlemen? Because you realize for a split second you don't know where you're going. This mono-minded thing is also why people can be physically present, men physically present and mentally absent. My son, when he was 8 or 9 years old, Tyson, got a phone call from a friend. Tyson was standing, I think, in the kitchen. And as he's talking on the phone, my friend said to him, "Tyson, are your parents home?" Typical male, "I don't know." "Well, have you seen them?" "Tyson, where are you?" "I'm right here." "Where's here?" Tyson said, "I kid you not, I'm here where I am." His little mono-minded brain couldn't process the fact that Bill's driving the car and wants to know, where are you physically? This mono-minded thing also is why men are so forgetful. Men tend to forget important dates, places, special things. I remember a couple of years ago being asked on Thanksgiving Eve, do you remember where we were 30 years ago tonight? Are you kidding me? I can't remember where I was 30 minutes ago most of the time. She says, that's the night you proposed. Oh. It's like the lady who said, what a coincidence. You forgot my birthday, I forgot how to cook. And I love the story of this man who was rushing out the door to work. The wife says, hey, bet you can't remember what today is. Oh, don't you hate that, guys? He said, sure I do. And he left. About 11 o'clock that morning, florist arrived with flowers. 2 p.m., a box of candy. 4 p.m., a dress from her favorite boutique. He came in the door that night, still having no clue what day it is, hoping to fake his way through it. She throws her arms around him and says, what a great day. First flowers, then candy, then a new dress. This is the best Groundhog Day ever. Now, the flip side of this is that women, stereo-minded, tend to be everywhere at once, which enables them to be in the living room thinking about something in the bedroom while they're headed for the garage. Guys, you can't do that. How many times have you walked into a room and thought, why am I in here? But the downside of this stereo-minded thinking is women can experience crosstalk. That's what it's called, which easily distracts the brain, which means one side of the brain is thinking about something and talking, and the other side interrupts. And when it interrupts, rather than argue with the other side, women just go with it. Which is why, guys, she can be talking to you about one thing and suddenly change subjects. Which leaves you thinking, what does this have to do with that? It's also why she can go shopping for a dress and come home with an outfit for the neighbor's baby. Because when she goes shopping, she gets distracted, sees something from the other side of the brain, goes, hey, what about the kid next door? Oh, hey, that's a good idea. See, we even shop differently based upon our brain patterns. Men, when you go shopping, you go to look for a specific item, don't you? You wouldn't think of meandering through the mall just to see what's new. Men are on a mission. Women meander. Even our buying patterns are different. Do you know that a man is generally willing to pay $2 for a $1 item if he wants it? Women, on the other hand, will gladly pay $1 for a $2 item she doesn't want because it's on sale. And she'll figure out some way to put that thing to good use. So, summarizing, our bodies are different. Better understand it so we can respect and honor each other. Our brains are different. We better understand that so we can respect and honor each other. And we're also different in our hardwired area of competition. Men are competitors and women are contributors. Men are not relational by nature, ladies. You know what they are by nature? Competitive. Everything's a contest. From the time little boys can talk, they're comparing things. They are constantly establishing a pecking order. That's why little boys, men, set out to conquer and control everything around them. That's why most men have very few friends. Because along the competitive highway, the friendships get damaged. That's why sports are so important to him. It's a place to conquer. It's why credentials are important to him. It's a place to be honored in your achievements. Conquer. Get her done. It's like the guy who was taking a trip and he said, family, no bathroom stops. We've got 500 miles to go today. And this is the same reason, because men are competitors. This is why he won't stop and ask for directions, ladies. He would rather wander around for a half hour than admit to a perfect stranger that he doesn't know where he's going. And it's also why he must be the master of the remote control. The remote gives him a tremendous feeling of power. If he doesn't like something on television, click, you're out of here. This drives you ladies crazy, doesn't it? You know why? Your stereo-minded brains, as he is going ka-chink, 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 your brains are still processing the last 3 channel changes. When he doesn't have a clue what was on 3 changes ago, because he is there at the moment. Not long ago, a cashier was waiting on a lady and said, would you like to pay cash or charge? The lady fumbled around in her purse and the remote control fell out. The cashier said, do you always carry the remote control to the TV in your purse? And she said, no. But my husband refused to come shopping with me, so I figured this was the most evil thing I could do to him. Men are competitors. Women are contributors. They're relational by nature. Did you know that baby girls smile more often than baby boys? Baby girls are more responsive to the cries of other babies in the nursery than baby boys. Isn't that something? Baby girls pay greater attention to photographs of faces than little boys. And when ladies grow up, this doesn't change. You see, women were shown pictures of actors portraying different emotions, and the women outscored men in accuracy of identifying those emotions 2-to-1 over the men. When listening to garbled conversations on tape, women were 2-to-1 better at identifying the emotional content. And this becomes a source of irritation. It's like the husband who said to his wife one time, total frustration. He said, why in the world do you weep and sniffle over a television program of imaginary people with imaginary problems that you have never even met? And she said, for the same reason you scream and yell when a man you don't know scores a touchdown. Competitors, contributors. And this has a tremendous effect upon the way we love. When women fall in love, they tend to forget about themselves. They can become overwhelmed by the needs of other, husband, the children. And when that happens, they tend to lose their balance and their ability to prioritize their own lives because they're contributing. And many times what happens is they will give, and if they're not receiving back, they'll give until they're emotionally empty, which leads to the next step, which is bitterness. And when men fall in love, they tend to focus upon themselves. And once a relationship is established for a man tends to pull back. You know why? Because the contest is over. He won the girl. And men assume that once they're married, the work at the relationship is over. Well, that's when it really begins. It's like the old guy who was asked, did you tell your wife you loved her today? No, I haven't told her that for 27 years. Well, why not? I told her the day I married her. I figured that was good enough. If I change my mind, I'll let her know. Another difference is men are visual and women are verbal. It was Solomon who said, all that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. Men are visual. That's why men buy things they can't afford with money they don't have to impress people they don't even like. It's also why the average woman prefers beauty to brains, because she knows the average man can see better than he can think. But this leads to all kinds of communication problems. And when we fail to communicate because of being visual and verbal, this complicates our relationships. It's like the family who had an old woman come live with them named Emma. They called her Aunt Emma. The marriage was really stressed by the presence of Aunt Emma because she was just a grumpy old lady. And for 6 years, they endured her nagging and complaining, her demanding attitude, and finally she died. Now, they weren't sure if they should have a funeral or a party, but as they were returning from the graveyard, the husband turned to his wife and he said, you know, dear, if I didn't love you so much, I don't think I could have put up with your Aunt Emma. She said, my Aunt Emma? I thought she was your Aunt Emma. See, we complicate things when we don't communicate. And it's difficult because men are visual and women are verbal. Which means, lady, if you really want to explain something to him, draw a picture. Well, probably not. Sadly, After 1 year of marriage, the average couple spends 37 minutes a week in private conversation after just 1 year. UCLA Communication Department studied communication and listening skills, and they discovered that people only hear half of what's said. They only understand half of that. They only believe half of that. And they only remember half of that. That's 6.25%. What is 6.25% of 37 minutes a week? Not enough. Now, nobody starts out silent. You know how it is when you're dating and all that. You talk, and you talk on the phone for hours. Well, okay, she talks for hours, you listen and do. But I think what happens is because men are visual and women are verbal, I think the communication becomes such a problem that we just go silent, which is why only 37 minutes a week after a year of marriage. And that's because little girls have these tremendous verbal skills, much greater skills than little boys. Little boys are the noise-oriented little characters. And in fact, they're great at making noises. But one study recently showed that this in 2 to 4-year-old little girls, that 100% of the noises that they produced were verbal words. Little boys, when they were recorded, showed only 40% verbal and 60% was noise. Now, I remember this when my kids were young. I remember walking down the hall and listening in on my 2 daughters. And they'd be in the room going, "Hello, hi, this is Barbie. Oh, it's nice to see you. Oh, you look really cute. Oh, yes, I like you too." And they're just talk. You just go down the hall to my son's room and listen, and you know what you'd hear down there? Almost no words. And then maybe, "I'll be back." Do you know that the average woman speaks 15,000 words a day, the average man about 9,000 a day? That's why when the two of you come home at the end of the day and you're done with your 9,000, she still has 6,000 to go. It's also why God created man first, so he'd get a chance to speak. There was one gentleman who said, "My wife always gets the last word." The other gentleman said, "You're lucky, mine never gets to it." And when it comes to this communication, men are bottom line oriented and women are detail oriented. That's why a woman can talk on the phone for an hour. The more she talks, the more she has something to say. So, because she's detail oriented. Whereas men are bottom line oriented, which is why at the end of the day, when I'm asked, "What did you do today?" I really struggle with that one. That's a tough question because I honestly don't remember. I do a whole lot better with, "How was your day?" "Fine." It only requires a one-word answer. But husbands, you ask your wife, "What did you do today?" Oh, pull up a chair. You're going to get a blow-by-blow description of every detail. I remember one time the girls came home with their mom, and as they walked through the door, they'd been shopping, and I tried to be Mr. Sensitive, which doesn't work. But I said, "Hey, girls, where'd you go and what'd you do?" Oh, wrong thing to ask. They started chattering, "Oh, we went to this store, and the mom went to this store, and she tried on this dress, and it's so cute," and they're going on and on and on. Remember, men are bottom line. I'm thinking bottom line. How much did you spend? And when talking, ladies, you should understand that men, now don't laugh too loudly at this, okay? Men tend to think before they speak. Now let me explain what I mean. Men are typically auditors of the mind. And they will sort through their thoughts until they get to the point that they want to make. It's almost as if they have this unwritten motto that says, "Don't speak until you have something to say." But that's why men drop bombshells on you ladies. At dinner one night, "You know what? We're going to move to Idaho." "Oh, you were already in Idaho." "You know what? We're going to move to California." And she may be shocked. And he'll say something like, "I've been thinking about this for a long time." He probably has been. And so when you understand that, you can respect it instead of coming back and with explosions and all that, and you can get a long ways down the road towards respecting and honoring one another. And women are exactly the opposite. Women tend to think out loud. Women are auditors of the ear. They tend to explore their thoughts and ideas while talking about them. That's how she comes to conclusions. That's also why she can change subjects in mid-sentence. So if men don't speak until they have something to say, then women don't know what to say until they've spoken. And then finally, men are moment-oriented and women are future-oriented. Gentlemen, you need to understand that her happiness is riding upon how she feels about the future. She needs security out there. She can put up with bad days, bad times now, as long as she knows there's a plan, knows there's a future, knows you know what you're doing. Men are the exact opposite. They can have a very uncertain future, and as long as the moment is covered, we'll get through this. And I can absolutely prove this to you right now. How many of you women tonight have a purse with you? Raise your hands. I think that's all of you. Oh, you don't have, oh yeah, you did. Yeah. How many of you men have a purse with you tonight? Why not? Don't you want to be prepared, guys? It's the perfect illustration. A lady carries a purse in order to be prepared for whatever might come her way. Whatever she might need, whatever somebody else might need. Whereas a man, what do you carry? Maybe a wallet. I don't even carry that anymore. I carry a little money clip with my license and a debit card and hopefully a couple of dollars. Because I'm not worried about next month. I just got to get through the day. And think about how many fights occur between men and women who otherwise love each other because they have such a radical, different look at the future. Well, these differences, they need to be respected, honored, accommodated, endured, and most importantly, enjoyed. Because when you understand them, there can be real happiness in watching that mate of yours fulfill their God-designed role as a woman or as a man, and allow it to be a blessing rather than a burden. Because those are the options. And so I hope that you'll all celebrate the absolute uniqueness of how God created you as a man or a woman. And Father, we bow before you tonight and just say thank you. We are wonderfully created. You have made us so different that we will never get tired of those differences. And so help each of us tonight to be committed to understanding them so that we can honor and respect one another. In Jesus' name, amen.
This has been Why Women Are Weird and Men Are a Mess, presented by Dave Moore. To receive a free catalog of over 200 awesome Bible studies on DVD or CD, all using and defending a literal translation of the Bible, information on upcoming Bible conferences in your area, or details of our missionary outreach and trips to Israel, call Compass at 1-800-977-2177 24 hours a day, or visit us on the web at compass.org.